everyone, it's Zach Dewhurst, the DecoNetwork Business Development Manager, and today we have Henry Ma, the CEO of Ricoma, and we're going to be talking about how to select the right embroidery equipment for your shop. How's it going, Henry?
Good. How are you, Zach? Good to be here.
Good. I wish I was down in Miami with you and not up here in Ohio where it's snowing.
It's gotten a couple of days of pretty chilly weather down here, but overall, yes, still quite warm.
What's chilly?
uh, Low 60s.
Oh
That's
gosh.
chilly for us.
It's funny, it's all relative. When we hit 50,
Yeah.
we are outside and partying. Um, everyone, we're going to talk about again how to select the right embroidery equipment to fit your business needs. There's a lot of different types of equipment out there when it comes to embroidery, and we're going to go over that and how to make that informed decision so you don't buy something you don't necessarily need, or you make sure what you buy will fit the demands that your customers are asking for. Let's just get into it, Henry.
Awesome.
So, when you're making any type of equipment purchase, there's factors that go into it. And when it comes to embroidery, one of the first ones you got to take into account is your budget. If you can't afford the equipment, then you can't really buy it. Henry, what is like a single head versus a two head versus a four head roughly run when it comes to like Ricoma embroidery equipment?
Sure. Yeah, I can speak on what our equipment typically costs. And the general rule of thumb is as you go up in the number of heads, your cost per head will typically be more favorable. So that there's a benefit to kind of scaling up in the multi-head space. But a single head machine, depending on kind of what model you get, can typically range anywhere between $8,000 to $9,000 on the lower end to 13,000 to $14,000 on the higher end. Again, all of this will vary depending on the number of needles you have on the single head, the embroidery area, the speed at which it runs, and so on and so forth. So those are kind of on the single head range, and then on the multi head range, our two head machines probably start around just around $20,000, and then the three heads and four heads, they go upwards of the mid 20s to low 30s, and then we go up all the way to 8 and 12 heads, so 12 heads total, and those can typically be around the $50,000 mark. So look, depending on the type of equipment that people need and the volume that they have, and of course their budget, it's important to plan out kind of how you want to start and in the future scale as you grow.
Okay. And full disclosure, I have a couple single head machines in my shop. Embroidery is not my bread and butter. I've bought the $10,000 to $12,000 machine. I've bought a $22,000 single head machine, and I have never thought that $22,000 single head machine is twice as good as the other. So you
Right.
don't you get what you pay for, but it's not always, justifiable. If I had to go back, I wouldn't have bought that $22,000 single head because it just hasn't delivered what I had hoped. And yeah, that's what I want to kind of also educate. It's not just the machine, right, Henry? It's the actual act of embroidery. If you're not using the right consumables, if you're not properly hooping, if you're not properly digitizing, it doesn't matter how much you spend on a machine. um, all of those things got to be right as well, right?
Of course, yeah. The machine is just that. It's a machine. It's a tool. So it takes what you input and tell it to do. If the operator isn't giving the right instructions, if you are not well versed in what kind of materials to use, the techniques of how to do embroidery, because these machines are not just plug and play. They're very computerized and automated, but they're not plug and play. And so there's still a part of the learning curve that needs to be overcome, that to be able to know how to operate these machines correctly. And so you're absolutely right. A $10,000 machine versus a $20,000 machine, It's not necessarily that the $20,000 machine is twice as good, and that therefore it costs twice as much. Most machines will get you from point A to point B with no issues. It's about the for most people, it's about the user the how user friendly the machine is, and the the type of features it has, what it can do in terms of the embroidery area, and more importantly, the return on investment, how quickly you can get that money back, so that you can be in the green on your investment. And so obviously, the lower cost you have going in, the faster that will return. All else being equal. So people kind of tend to look at cost and budget as an extension of that, and therefore are cautious of how they spend that budget, especially when they're just buying their first machine.
Yep. And yeah, we're gonna go over some of those things. But also, Henry, the space. If I don't have the room for one of those 12 head machines, even though I might have the demand for it, I can't, put a square peg in a round hole. Um,
Yeah.
so a lot of shops, I mean, like myself, most shops, they start in their basement or the garage or, an outbuilding. You got to have the space to take that equipment, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's the way that we design our machines also kind of take that into consideration, in that all of our machines can fit through a standard size door. So people that we've had people that start in their apartment building. It's literally, you got to fit it into the elevator, the service elevator, and bring it up to the to the 12th floor, and fit in their living room. So it has to kind of fit in through a standard size door. And it's good that, even with our multi-head machines, while it's very wide, when you turn it around on its side, the kind of depth of it can definitely fit through a standard size door. That's all designed with that in mind, and that people don't have to have a commercial space, a warehouse, or a commercial space to be able to fit these machines. But of course, space is a limitation that everyone needs to consider. Even if you're starting out in your garage, you need to make the space for that machine, and all the supplies that are around it. All the sometimes people put shelves and other things to organize their supplies. So all of that will take space. So space planning is probably one of the most common questions we get on the dimensions of the machine, and whether it will fit through this particular space of mine, to kind of tackle that problem. Because yeah, if you can't fit the machine in, it's a moot point.
Yeah, and that's a great benefit to be able to put it through a man door versus having, French doors or a garage door. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to have to retrofit your building just to get a machine into the
Right.
area.
Right.
And that kind of goes with the next situation. I do a lot of consulting with shops who use DecoNetwork software. And one thing I never really thought about so much is it amazes me how many shops actually take embroidery equipment to events and do on-site embroidery, and not every machine is as portable as another. So if you're looking to do that on site, you need that portability. And again, just like you said, being able to take that through a man door is very important if you're going to be taking it again to somewhere and you don't know their logistics for what you can do.
Yeah, and the portability wise, some people take them to craft shows so that they can do the designs on the spot. Some people have, I've even heard, customers purchase our machines for kind of this mobile embroidery business model. They just drive around in a van with the machine in the back of their van, and then or truck or trailer, and then they go around to different places, and then it's on, go to different events. And then people that want customized stuff on their apparel, or on the apparel that the vendor provides, he can digitize the design right there if it's a simple name and whatnot, and then be able to customize that hat or that shirt for them right on the spot. And so the portability is also an area of things that and a factor that people should consider, and because it's all dependent on your business model, right? If you need your machine to be more portable and you're going to move it around more often, then yeah, don't get a super heavy machine to have to haul it around and disassemble and reassemble, crate it, and all of that stuff. So our single head options also have kind of tiers in its portability. For the more heavy duty machines, they're going to be more heavy, but there's also kind of entry level machines that kind of win out on the portability factor, and people sometimes have combinations of different machines for different use cases.
Yeah, I have a client who just goes to rodeos and
Yeah,
they'll go. I know I've never. I'm in the Midwest. I'm not in rodeo country, but they'll be there for a month and they'll be
yeah,
doing big jackets and everything, and it's all about being able to move that equipment around.
right,
Which again is that's what I love about our industry is there's a lot of different business models out there using often the same piece of equipment, and that's not to say you can't go to events and still use it in your shop. So, you got to just ask yourself and make sure that you're making that right decision. And
correct.
something you brought up just a little bit ago is like the soap field.
Yeah.
If I'm looking to do big tapestry or tablecloths and so forth, I got to make sure
Hmm.
I'm getting the right type of machine that's going to be able to handle that, right?
Correct. Yeah. Different machines have different sewing fields and embroidery areas. So depending on the type of projects you're looking to do, make sure you get the right machine that has that embroidery area. And also, there's different accessories that can expand that embroidery area even further. Extension tables. These long extension tables, very good for sashes and table runners, curtains, things of that nature. So just getting the right machine and the right accessories with those machines to be able to fit what you're looking to do. And many times you have to also keep in mind that maybe it's not something that you're looking to do now, but you want to buy a machine that you can grow into also, or else you'll be switching machines every time you have to take the next level up, and you get an order that you can't fill because you don't have the capability to do it. So always, I always recommend to people to not only look at what they're doing now, but think about what they want to do or might be doing 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months from now, so that you're buying a machine that maybe you're only using 50% of the capabilities today, but in 6 to 12 months, as you grow and as your business scales, you don't want to be limited by your initial purchase.
That makes complete sense, Henry. Your customer demand. If in my shop, the reason why we primarily have single head machines is our average order is 12 or less. I don't need a 12 head machine necessarily. I would rather have multiple single heads and have more flexibility. So it really comes also down to what are your customers asking for? What's your market, right? You should make that purchase. If you've got orders that are hundreds of pieces, I don't want to be using a single head to be doing
Yeah,
that.
right.
Um, and for those who don't know, when you're running the machine, if you have 8 heads, all 8 heads are sewing the same design at once. You can't be doing different designs on different heads. You could be doing different color schemes on different heads, but you got to make that decision and keep that in mind. It's not like a digital piece of equipment that you might have multiple platens moving in and out like a DTG machine sometimes, and you could be doing different designs.
Right.
One design at once.
Yeah, because it's one control system. So how the head moves and how the pantograph moves as it's embroidering, it's all the same movement. So it's doing the same design all at once because it's one control system. So yeah, that's something that varies based on your business model and what you're focused on. There are customers of ours that purchase our machines and they only have single heads because they do these custom jackets for sororities and Greek orgs. And so those type of jackets are very custom. It's the specific name. It's got a very specific design. So you're not making not even 3, 5 of each. You're making 1 or 2 pieces of each. So having a multi-head machine for them doesn't really make any sense. So having multiple single heads, I think they have like 3 single heads. That fits their business model. On the flip side, yeah, if your orders are kind of these bulk orders, 500 hats for a local organization, 500 t-shirts or whatever the case is, when it's kind of the same design in volume, if you're doing that on a single head, that will take you at least 2, 3, 4 weeks just to fulfill that type of order. But a multi-head, even a 6-head machine can probably pump that out in a quarter of the time. So it's just a matter of making sure to to plan accordingly and purchase machines that's going to fit your business model. One thing I would add to that though is that larger shops that I've seen that have gotten to a certain scale, they've always had a combination of single heads and multi heads.
Yep.
The reason being, they still get these large orders, and that's what their multi heads are used for. But they also don't want to turn away like a 12-piece order, let's say, that might have higher profit margin because it's more customized, it's more personalized, and at the same time, for these larger 500-piece orders, they still have to run tests and samples
Yes. Yep.
for customers. So you kind of want to have the single heads lying around to do just that instead of relying on your 12 head machine and shutting off all 12 heads but one and leaving one on to just sew the sample. It's not a good use of your 12 head machine that's supposed to be doing bulk orders. And then so they use the single heads to do the testing, and then once it's finished, then they put it on the 12 heads to pump out, and then they kind of keep the line going in that sense.
Yep. I mean, unlike all our other processes, embroidery is one where if it's the first time we're sewing that logo, we are going to sew it and send it to the customer for their approval before we do a larger run. Because it's just because a design looks a certain way digitally doesn't mean when it's digitized, it's thread looks different than print.
Yeah,
And you find the confirmation from the customer that it is what they want. And the thing about embroidery is you're typically going onto a much more expensive product. When you're going onto a polos on average are two, three, four times more expensive than a t-shirt. So
yeah.
there's a lot more risk of, damaging or having to replace product. And you want to make sure the customer's happy. So test sews, absolutely. Um, so um, when you select a machine, I don't care what type of equipment it really is, and I feel like this is the same thing about apparel. Um, is what's the value? It's a combination of the price and the quality. I think of like a Gildan T-shirt. Personally, ever since I could buy shirts wholesale, I don't wear too many Gildan shirts anymore. But a
Mhm.
Gildan shirt is good value. The price that I pay for it with the quality, it's fair versus, I pay for a $4 or $5 shirt wholesale. That quality better be really good to create that value because the price is much higher.
Okay.
And the same thing with like an embroidery machine. When you're looking at the different manufacturers and you're making a selection, make sure that the value is there. And again, I spent a lot of money on a single head from another manufacturer. Um, I'm gonna stop by the Ricoma booth at Long Beach because I'm in the market, Henry. And
Awesome.
and I
Yeah.
I love what I've
Hmm.
seen, and it's like, what, what's the value, and um, yeah, it's very important that you do get what you pay for, but there's a lot that goes into it. One of them is the brand reputation and reliability. Um, how long has Ricoma been making embroidery equipment?
So we've just had our 25th year anniversary this year, so for a quarter of a century now. So uh, not the longest one on the market, but I would think with 25 years of experience
25.
under our belt, we've figured out a thing or two about how to make these things. But yeah, I agree with you that we're not the most expensive machine in the market, nor are we the most cheapest machine in the market, right? We're kind of right in that highest value per dollar. That's how we've positioned ourselves in the market, so that you really get the most bang for your buck, right? You're not gonna overpay for a machine just because of the brand, and how long they've been around, nor are you getting a cheap machine that will fall apart after a couple of years. So you're really looking at a good combination of the way that I compare ourselves is kind of like we're like the Toyota in the market, right? Like we're not like the Ferrari that will cost you an arm and a leg, but we're also kind of not a kind of cheap brand or a cheap quality make either. So you're in that kind of most mass market Still very affordable for most people to get into, and provides a reliable piece of equipment that will last you for years and years to come if you maintain and treat it right. So that's kind of where we see ourselves in that highest value part of the market, and that's what we've been consistently positioning ourselves for the last 25 years.
I love your analogy with the car because I've used that exact same example. You know, the Honda Civic or the Toyota Corolla, it'll get you to point A to point B.
You're
So
right,
will the
right,
Ferrari,
exactly.
but the
Yeah,
maintenance and the price and the depreciation
right.
and the embroidery equipment is built to last a long time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like a digital print head which is going to be replaced at some point. It has a lifespan, it has so many prints in it, and there's little parts that could potentially break, but what embroidery equipment, it holds its value longer than, I mean, most things in the industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still see some of our customers on the with machines on the market, that they come back for some tune-ups or maintenance or some replacement parts that are from like 2007 to 2008, around there. So 2008, in the late 2000s, and so those machines have been on the market for like what 15 years now, right? And still going. So yeah, of course your machines are gonna wear down over time, and replacement parts will probably be needed when it's over 10 years old at that point. But given that we're the factory and we manufacture these machines, we always have these parts in stock, and we can find you those parts, so you not have to look for on the secondary market, or like see kind of what parts are available for it. You can come directly to the source to kind of get the all the parts that you would need. So that's why there's still machines out there that have lasted for 14, 15 years, that people are still using.
Yep, and that's one thing I really liked, when I was talking with some of the reps at the Deco Summit, which I highly suggest anybody attend, that Ricoma puts on each year. And just the fact that it's so rare to see the company that's selling the equipment is actually the same company who's manufacturing it. And that just that continuity and ability to, like you said, get your hands on parts and the tech support. Um, my $22,000 machine was not like that, and that was frustrating to me. And again, like it just frustrating, and why I'm going to be looking for embroidery. The Ricoma booth next January. I'm bringing my general manager, and he's real excited to have some
Great. Looking
conversation.
for we'll get you a good deal. Looking forward to it. And yeah, like you said, it's very. I think we're the only one in the market that sells machines here in the U.S. that is the manufacturer of the product. Because you got people that most people, they're like an authorized dealer, right? They're a master dealer or a master distributor in the U.S., but they don't manufacture the machine. They're like a think of it like the analogy that I make is like think of them as like a Home Depot, right? They're like they collect all these different equipment, and they sell it, which is great. I mean, there's a model for that. Like Home Depot is a great company, and is successful in doing that. But Home Depot doesn't make all of its products like on the shelves. So with us, it's more of the way that I compare it is like it's like the Tesla model. Like Tesla doesn't sell through dealers, because there's a conflict of interest in is the dealer going to push like gasoline cars or EVs? Like they don't know, so they control the distribution. At the same time, they manufacture their own machines. So that's kind of how we carved out a path for ourselves here, to be able to manufacture the machines, control the R&D and the engineering, at the same time control the distribution, and therefore the after sale service as well. So you're always dealing with direct employees of Ricoma, not a middleman, so to speak, that kind of just buys and sells our machines.
No, makes complete sense. It's like a DecoNetwork. Everything that's built within the software is developed by our team of developers. We're not looking to outsource work and then lose control and XYZ.
Right.
Um, But when you're selecting a machine, I mean, even the warranty that goes along with it. I think I saw that Ricoma has a 5-year warranty on the drivetrain. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's a 1 year on parts and labor, 3 years on the boards and electronics, and then 5 years on the drivetrain. So your shafts, gears, belts, things of that nature,
Awesome.
motors.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then installation and support. Again, being able to buy directly from the manufacturer is definitely always going to have its pros. One of the things is the actual installation and support. When I bought my machine, it took me like 2 months to have the tech come out, install it, train us, and so forth. Very frustrating. Um, what's Racoma's average, installation time? If I bought a machine from you today, how quickly might you be able to install it? I know that the installation comes with a multi-head
Yep.
automatically. So what might be the time frame for you come out, because sometimes it is that, hey, I just got this giant order, I've got 2 months to fulfill it,
Right.
but I can get this new
Yeah.
machine in, and before you know it, I've paid a quarter of it off because of this order.
Correct, correct. Yeah, so yeah, many times the gap to when we can train is definitely an important factor for many customers. Given those situations, especially when they have a pressing order to fulfill, and that order was what prompted them to get this machine in the first place. But for single heads, we provide the online training. You can people go through like a pre-training on their customer portal, and then they can sign up for training slots. We have I think like 3 or 4 training sessions every single day. So there's plenty of slots to choose from. That should, depending on when they get their machine and when they complete the pre-training at their own pace, they can select the time that best suits them. That's very easy. For the multi-heads, yeah, because you need to coordinate a trainer on site to go and install and train. That will typically take a few weeks. I would say about a 2-week turnaround by the time it ships is when we start to coordinate. We have an idea of when it's going to arrive at the customer's shop, and then be able to 2 weeks ahead start already scheduling and planning out what's the availability of the technicians either in the area, or flying out one of our own staff to be able to train on site. So it's what I've seen is generally like a 2-week turnaround period. And some customers, they say they need it sooner. We will try to work with them on that. Some of them are like, well, I'm on vacation until like a month later. Hold off on the delivery until and the training until I get back. So we kind of work with the customer on a case by case basis, but on average, probably around a couple of weeks.
And you guys actually have the machines on hand in Miami or California, right? Because when I bought
Correct.
my expensive machine, it had to come on a shipping container, and I kid you not, it got stuck in the Suez Canal fiasco. And
Uh,
it was terrible. I was like, I need this thing. And
yeah.
yeah, it's an advantage having that equipment on hand and not having to wait for it to be shipped from across the world uh, to you. Um,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so we have our machines in Miami and California. Things can ship out of either location depending on where the customer's order is coming from, so that it can expedite that shipping and also save on some cost.
okay. And then when you're buying a machine, like you kind of brought up a little bit earlier, that there's accessories that are included, and then there's accessories that you often want to potentially purchase to enhance the machine or make something like hooping easier. So I know a couple things that almost every machine comes with hoops.
Yeah,
Now, one thing that, in my experience, almost every manufacturer charges hundreds of dollars. I mean, I think it's around like $500 for a cap frame. And
yeah.
when you're picking out a machine, if you're going to do flats and caps, figure out how much this is going to cost you if it's included in your equipment. Before you know it, you're spending half $1,000 on just being able to do hats when you thought it was included with the machine.
Right. Yeah, that's something to definitely ask. Of course, everything included is going to be the best route to go. But yeah, there are some companies that will offer it on a la carte basis. Just the flat hoops will come with it. But oh, if you need a calf frame, it's if you need a cap driver, that thing is like $1,000, and then if you
Yeah.
need a hooping station, it's like $500. If you need the cap rings, which you do, if you want to embroider
Yeah.
caps, that's
Obviously. Yeah.
that's another couple $100. So by the time you add all
Yeah.
that up, just to do hats for these packages that are more a la carte, you're looking at an extra $2,000 on top of the machine price that you didn't um, plan for. And so that's something very important to ask and make sure what's included,
Yeah.
in the machine package. For us here, everything's included: the stand, the machine, even the starter kit of threads and bobbins and backing for you to try out from our partners. And then of course all the accessories, all the all the flat hoops, all the cap drivers, everything to be able to do flats and hats. The so it's really kind of ready to go out the box, and all you have to do is just assemble the stand and thread your machine, and you're ready to go. We even pre-thread the machine for you, so that all you have to do is kind of tie the knot on the thread rack, and pull it through. So we pre-thread everything like halfway, and you just have to thread it through the needle. So that's super easy to set up. But all inclusive packages are typically what people are looking for, so that they have everything they need right out the gate.
Yeah. Those sales reps sometimes they don't tell you everything that you may
Yeah.
need. Um,
Right.
One thing I thought that's very unique with Ricoma is you guys actually include your digitizing software, Chroma, correct? When
Yeah,
you buy a
yeah.
machine?
Yeah, we do. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so we include the digitizing software as well. We include the Chroma, which is our own proprietary digitizing software. We have different tiers of it. We include the Chroma Inspire, which is the entry level tier, and then you got two more tiers above that you can upgrade to. But yeah, it's simple digitizing software. You can do some simple editing, texts, monograms, simple designs. We even include that, so that in case you want to kind of start learning how to digitize, you already have a $700 worth of software to get you started. Some people, even if they start out outsourcing the digitizing to someone else, they always have that option if they want to bring it in house and earn some additional revenue from the design services. So we do offer that and include it in all of our packages.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And like you said, just because if you have that ability to do it in house, that gives you that extra flexibility. It doesn't mean you have to do every single design that comes your way and you've got to do it yourself. But somebody needs a simple text or a very simple
Right.
logo, and you don't have a
Yeah.
lot of experience. I mean, that software is going to allow you to do things. Um,
Exactly.
and I
Exactly.
did the same
And,
thing
and
with
and
that.
and it's better to have it than not, right? So you always have that option. If you want to, a customer walks in, I just want a simple name, you can just type out the name on your digitizing software, and do it yourself, instead of paying someone, 20 bucks to do that.
And I'm sure that using digitizing software has become greatly easier, I would think, over the years, versus what it was like
For sure.
20 years ago. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure.
so, some questions to ask yourself when you're buying a machine. Again, we've kind of covered these. How many units is my average order? That's going to decide how many heads you typically need. Um, how many colors are in my average order? Am I primarily doing a 20 color design? That's not common, but
Hmm.
your machine heads range. I through my consulting experience, I see 9 heads, I see 12, 15. I have an 18, or not. I'm sorry, heads. I mean needles. I have an 18 needle machine. And one thing I made a mistake, Henry, was thinking that the amount of needles dictates how many colors I can do. And that's not
Right.
necessarily always the strategy. The strategy is somewhat as well. How often do I want to be changing the colors on the machine? It takes time to swap
Yeah.
colors, right, and rethread and so forth. So I like having more needles, so that my first 6 colors, my black, my white, um, and then I actually have a second white with a different size needle, so I can do
Mm,
finer details. And there, so don't think that the amount of needles is all about how many colors I want to be able to sew in an order. It's the flexibility of not having to swap out spools of thread as often and have that flexibility of being able to do finer detail with different needle sizes. Um, what is the
That's
actual?
yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there on the common misconception of people thinking that, a 20 needle machine, well, I don't need that because I'm not doing 20 different colors. But you're essentially turning a 20 needle machine into like 4 or 5 different machines with subsets of needles of the same color. People put like 3 whites, 3 blacks on there because that's your most common color. So when you run out of one, just switch your design to the other one, and then while it's running, you can rethread the machine instead of waiting for your machine to, having your machine stop and then you have to rethread everything. So it's essentially giving you more efficiency by having a broader range of needles, normal size needles, larger size needles for more structured and tougher items, finer needles, smaller size needles for finer details and small lettering, and then you need colors for each of those. So that adds up, over time. So having 20 needles gives you that flexibility and the efficiency that you would need for all of these different types of projects.
Um, and then there's like specialty effects like chenille. And on another slide, we're going to talk a little bit about chenille because not everybody's, you know, adverse with it. But, you have different types of embroidery. I mean, the majority of it is simple 2D to a degree. Then you have 3D puff, which almost pretty much every machine could do. But then like chenille, very different type of embroidery,
Yeah,
look and feel with that dimension. And you brought up Letterman jackets and so forth. I always, I thought as a kid, how I got into the industry is I loved playing sports and everything, and I liked watching like the show How It's Made, and I see all of these customization things. It's like, how did they do that? And chenille is very interesting. I've seen some of Ricoma's chenille machine. Pretty cool effect, and again, it's a niche. If you're trying to support it, if you've got 4 different schools all funneling you Letterman jackets, you need that chenille machine to be able to do it. Um,
correct.
that's something to think about. But a normal chenille machine can still do normal embroidery, right? It's not like it's just chenille.
Yeah, so the if you're looking to do chenille, it's a complete different machine and a different head. But we have a machine that's a embroidery and chenille combo. So it's like a two head machine. One head is an embroidery head, and another head is the chenille head. Because with chenille, you're actually pulling the thread from the bottom, not you're not feeding the thread from the top. So they got these big spools of like wool or yarn. It's like yarn, not thread, and then so it kind of pulls it up through the bottom, and then it creates that kind of towel and that kind of fluffy, fuzzy feel. And so yeah, we have sewing and embroidery combo machines where you can do chenille on one head, and then if you digitize and the sequence is set up properly, the design will move itself, or the hoop will move itself automatically to the embroidery side, and you can do like a border and other text to embellish the overall design. So it's chenille and embroidery combo.
Awesome. And then we've talked about wider sew fields. Again, you don't want to get a machine with a smaller sew field if all of a sudden you want to offer, you know, big blankets or tablecloths, things like that. Just because you may not need it all the time, you have the ability to. Um, and again, you got to ask yourself, what am I going to be sewing? And do I need that larger sew field? Um, Okay, how to select the right amount of thread or heads. So, really, when it comes to machines, there's 2 types. There's the single head and multi-head for the most part.
Yep.
Like we've talked about, a single head is typically used for lower run orders and test sews.
Hmm.
I don't want to be doing a test sew on a 12 head machine. That just doesn't make sense. When it comes
Right.
to embroidery, the machine it takes time. How much time it takes to sew a design comes down to a few different factors. One, how many stitches are there? How much detail is in the design? How fast are we running the machine? And that's a whole nother. I've seen that too much, Henry, where they're like, this machine could do 2,000 stitches a minute, and they're demoing it at the show, and every other minute this the needles breaking or the threads
Threads
breaking. And
breaking.
like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. Well, that's not so in 2,000 stitches a minute in this case. So,
Right.
um, it
Yeah,
versus
I compare it to like a car. It's like the car can drive like 140 miles
yeah,
per hour, but you never drive it at 140 miles per hour,
yeah,
do you? So like it's rarely going up that much. So yeah, in theory you can go up to that speed, but if you want kind of quality and consistency, you're not gonna drive it at 2,000 stitches per minute all the time. And also, even if consistency wasn't an issue, and say it was doing that perfectly, you wear down your machine faster by doing that, right? It's like yeah, always flooring it on a gas pedal on a car. You're not gonna that car's not gonna last very long.
you're redlining it. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Right,
yeah.
right.
Um, Now a multi-head again is there. You see the 2 to 3 heads. It's kind of a smaller multi-head, and then you
Right.
get into that 4 to 12 head, and
Yeah.
again, you got to have that footprint and so forth, or space available for it, and the right types of demands. That's why it's very common for shops to have both single heads and multi-heads, so they have that flexibility um, that they're going to need.
Yeah.
Um,
The example that I always tell people is like, think about if you had an order for like a soccer team, right? And then you're doing the team's logo and the player names. If you only
yep,
had like a 12 head machine, you can do the logos pretty easily,
yep,
and pump out like 50, 60 jerseys very very quickly. But then when each player needs 2 3 jerseys with their name on it, you can't do that on the 12 head anymore. You need a single head, or if you only had a 12 head, you would shut down 10 or 11 of those heads and be able to do those players one at a time. But if you had a single head and a 12 head machine, you would do the team's logo on the 12 head, and then as they're coming off fresh off of the machine, you're loading them onto the single head to be able to do their names. So you're kind of keeping both sides running, and therefore you're going to complete that order much faster than someone that only had a single head or only had a 12 head. So it's
yep,
the efficiency factor, when the combination comes into effect.
yep. I think of like, yeah, just like you said, with like hats and sports teams, logo, player number on the back. You think like a polo, very common, logo on the left chest, name on the right chest.
Yeah, yeah,
Few different strategies behind it.
yeah,
Um, I did forget. I always forget to mention this. If anybody has any questions, they can submit them, and we'll go over them at the end. So if you have any questions about what we're talking about or how to select the right machine, feel free to submit that question. We'll go over them at the end. Henry, we just talked about specialty equipment, the chenille combo machine, um, and it's going to allow you to do again the chenille. It's very obvious what it looks like when you see it versus your traditional 2 or 3D embroidery.
yeah.
It has that kind of, like you said, the towel kind of effect. Um, it's a special effect. It's commonly used in Letterman jackets. That's where
Mhm.
I primarily see it. I mean, obviously, it has other applications or patches, things like that. And they typically have a little bit larger of a sewing field. Is that correct, Henry?
Yeah, they typically have kind of the largest size sewing field for like a single, like comparable to like a single head machine. Because on the picture that you're showing on the right there, that is kind of uh, the that's the chenille part, where the threads and the cones are like at the bottom, and then it kind of pulls it up through the top. So the embroidery field probably around like maybe 18 by 17, around there.
Wow.
So just under 20 inches. So you can do a lot of chenille patches kind of all at once. So you do multiple patches in a larger run, or you do kind of like one big jacket design on a Letterman jacket.
Okay. All right. So accessories. Like you've talked about the large extendable table. So there's a couple different types of tables. You have a flat table, which is allows you to do more like bags and heavier items to help support it as it's being embroidered versus just hanging
Right.
directly underneath it. And then you have the extendable table, like what we see here, which allows again for more of the tapestry and tablecloths and so forth.
Sashes. Yeah,
Sashes.
sashes. Yep. Yeah, we have a customer that just does sashes for like pageants and stuff, and so they that's their niche, and so they use this extended table all the time because they need that to embroider on sashes.
So yep, oversized items are those unique. And then you also, we have like lasers that can confirm that the design will fit within the hoop range.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can do it, and then all of a sudden your needle comes down on the hoop and it's broken immediately. And if
Right.
you've already started sewing that design, Henry, there's no going back. I mean, you
Right.
can kind of get rid of it, but if you get to the very end of the design and it starts hitting the edge of the hoop,
Yeah.
you're done. I mean,
Right.
so having that laser can help prevent, especially again, we're talking about more expensive items than the average thing that's printed. The average embroidered product is much more expensive than printing, which is primarily done on t-shirts, sweatshirts, and so forth.
Right.
Uh, so, other features to consider when purchasing a machine. So, the sewing speed. And again, this can be deceiving because I hear a lot of reps at the trade shows talk about how fast a machine could go. And just because it can doesn't mean that it should be done that
Hmm.
way.
Uh-huh.
But what the actual speed is important because we obviously have consumable cost. But the consumables, when you compare it to most printing methods, and like screen printing's consumables are very small, but there's a lot of setup labor that goes into
Yeah.
the job. Versus digital printing equipment often has more expensive inks than screen printing, but there's very minimal job prep. When it
Yeah.
comes to embroidery, the machine itself to sew a design, it takes time. So there's only so much that can be sewn in a day. And again, it comes down to the design itself and several factors. So you want to make sure you're getting the machine that sews at the correct speed. Um, and you're going to be able to, again, get jobs out at a good pace. Um, Another one, and this isn't as big of a factor for everybody, but if you're embroidering in an apartment, it can be. How loud is
Yes.
that machine? And the sewing speed often will dictate that as well, right, Henry? If I slow the machine
Yeah.
down, it's typically going to be a lot quieter. Um,
Correct.
but
And
sometimes
we've
that's a factor.
yeah, we've actually when we run our machines at the trade shows, we get a lot of comments when people are kind of looking at the machine and nearby to the machine. You can actually hold a conversation right next to the machine with no issue. And a lot of people have commented that's like, oh wow, you guys, your machines are super quiet. And we're running these machines at the show at pretty high speeds. You're talking about 800-900 stitches per minute, sometimes even 1,000 stitches per minute on the multi heads to run through all of these caps. And sometimes even 1,000 stitches per minute on the single heads when we're doing like a 300,000 stitch design that would take like five hours to do. So you're trying to kind of speed things up. And we have these large intricate designs for these shows, and people are kind of commenting on these machines are super quiet. I think the speed is definitely a factor of it. Another thing I want to mention is obviously the build of the machine and the kind of internal components and how well they work together is going to dictate how loud or not loud that machine is going to sound, especially at higher speeds. If your components have gaps in them and they have spacing in them and they're not as seamless at higher speeds, they're going to knock against each other, and that's going to be amplified throughout the system, and that's how you get louder noise. But
Yep.
when your machine is built properly and you have more seamless kind of gears and stuff components within each internal part, that seamless kind of movement is going to be more smooth and therefore reduce the noise.
Yeah, again, like you want your embroiderer to like the equipment that they're working on. And if they got to be around the loudest thing possible all day, it's not as much
Yeah.
fun.
Right.
Um, I mean, go back to your Tesla. That thing is quiet.
Yeah.
It's not a Harley Davidson that's just being real loud. Something else
Right.
I want to just make sure everybody understands if they're looking to get into embroidery. when we sew a flat, a polo, a quarter zip, really any bags, anything flat is sewn typically, like you just said, Henry, maybe that um, 800, 1,000, 1,200 stitches per minute or revolutions per minute. Each manufacturer has different, uh, terminology. But then a
Mhm.
hat, you don't sew a hat typically at 1,200 stitches a minute,
Right.
because it's a round object and it's got to be rotated. What do you often see? What's a good amount of stitches per minute if you're doing a
Yeah,
hat?
typically around probably 600, 6 to 700 would definitely be okay. I mean, but if your machine is dialed in, we've done experiments and videos on just stitching 3D puff at like 1,000 stitches per
Oh,
minute.
wow.
You gotta have your digitizing all dialed in, it's like perfectly digitized. You gotta make sure it's properly tested. And then once that's done, your machine's probably set up, needles all good, and everything's set up properly, tension is all good. Yeah, that thing can hum and it won't stop, right? So, but typically, you would run your designs probably around 6 to 700 stitches per minute for hats. You can go a little bit higher, 800 to 900 for flats. But some people kind of push the boundaries, and because they feel more comfortable, and if you're more experienced, you can definitely go faster on the machines and save you some time. Some of our experienced embroiderers that have been doing this for 5 7 years, yeah, they can run at 900 stitches, 1,000 stitches per minute, all day long on a hat, and no issue. But your mileage may vary depending on kind of your experience and kind of what type of item you're looking to do, and how intricate that design is. If you're doing like small letters, yeah, even the best digitizing and best embroiderer, probably you don't want to run that thing at 1,000 stitches per minute. It's not going to be as crisp as if you slow it down to 5 600 and kind of do those finer details.
Yep, and that, again, it goes back to, I don't care if you buy the most expensive equipment out there. If you don't actually look at embroidery as a skilled trade, you're never gonna, get the most out of that equipment. We are talking
Right.
about it's a trade. It's skilled, and it's not just. I used to, for years I outsourced my embroidery, and I did it actually in a shop that I shared space with, and I just looked at it as it's a set it and forget it piece of equipment. No, no, no. I always thought, oh, screen printing. Look at all these things I've got to master. And I just didn't look at embroidery that way until I started doing it in house and was like, whoa, there's a lot to get
Yeah.
right. I better use the right
Yes.
backing, the right needle size. I better make sure that digitizing is proper. There's just so many things that go into it. It's not just the machine itself. That's
Correct.
just one. It's just the tool
Yeah.
itself.
Like
Your
any
analogy.
piece of equipment. Yeah, like any piece of equipment, you got to learn it. So
Yeah,
there's going to be a learning curve. It's if it were plug and play, a lot more people would do it, and it would not be as profitable, right?
profitable.
So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. User interface, and I know Ricoma's got some nice touchscreen panels, and to some that's like, oh, why do I need a touchscreen? What does that do? I'm telling you, it's nice to have that touchscreen and be able to move the design around. On the cheaper machine I bought years ago, it even has a camera. And I'll tell you, I love using that camera when we do like a design sometimes over a pocket, or I need to get it placed exactly, and I can actually see it imposed on there. But having touchscreen and that user interface of the machine, you want whoever's running the machine, you want them to be happy and not dread working with it. Um, so I think the user interface is actually important. Would you agree, Henry?
yeah, of course. I think that's one of the things we focus on a lot because like we kind of discussed, most embroidery machines can get you from point A to point B. It will complete the job, but it's your setup, how you input your design, how you can change it and save it, your filing system, and all of that to make your setup process easier. And so that if that saves you some headaches and it's more ease of use, saves you some time, that can be the difference, right? And so that's something that user interface for our products is super important to us.
Well, and did I even hear? Can I send a design remotely to the machine?
Yeah, so on our Wi-Fi compatible panels, which is our 8S panel and our newest 10S panel, which is our latest 10-inch touchscreen, which based on the it's multi-touch too, so you can like pinch and slide, kind of like a tablet. And on those both of those are Wi-Fi compatible. So if your machine is hooked up to your computer via Wi-Fi, you have the IP address all set up. You can just literally connect via Wi-Fi and then send that design over from your computer direct to your machine. And what's great is our own software, Chroma, on the digitizing software. It's compatible with our machine because it's our own software. You can literally be working on the design after you're digitizing. You don't have to leave Chroma and literally press a few buttons and then it sends it over to your machine and you can start embroidering. So it's very seamless when you have that Wi-Fi transfer.
My $22,000 machine, I could not just take any ordinary USB and
Mm-hmm.
get the design out, stick it in the machine. We had to format the USB stick. It's
Uh,
just a nightmare. Like, why can't I do this? And if I could eliminate the USB completely, oh my gosh, that would. I mean, again, it sounds kind of dumb, but it is helpful. Especially when you're doing like testos and so forth. We just constantly are pulling that USB out, putting it in.
yeah.
Um,
And it wears out over time, even your
yeah,
USB port. We have a USB port, but you can use that or you can use Wi-Fi. So we give you that option.
everybody loves Wi-Fi. That's the first question. What's your Wi-Fi password?
Yeah.
The ease of threading, when you've got to change colors, is it a nightmare to thread that machine? You talked about having the machine actually already be somewhat threaded when it arrives.
Right.
So, I think it's important, especially if you're doing it very often, you know, how easy is it to thread that machine? And like we just said, the connectivity options, can I remotely with Wi-Fi? Huge
Yeah.
bonus. Not, there's
Not,
wants,
not
there
not
are
like a
needs.
deal breaker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a need, it's a want. Um,
Right.
and yeah, if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want a glass of milk.
Right.
Um, Editing capabilities as well. Can I resize that design? Can I just drop
Yeah.
text in there straight from the machine? Those have their benefits as well. Um,
Of course.
okay, hooping accessories. So this right here is the magnetic mighty hoop, and I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about this because to me it's a game changer, Henry. They're not cheap, but it is worth every penny in my opinion.
Yes.
So your traditional hoop, you've got two pieces, and you then have to take a screwdriver, tighten it up, and it's a nightmare if you compare it to what a magnetic hoop is capable of. I mean, a magnetic hoop, it makes life
Yes.
so much easier because again, you could have great digitizing, the machine could be dialed in, you could have the best of everything, but if you poorly hoop the design, it's not going to sew well, it's not going to, if
Right.
it's crooked, all that. So let's see if I can lift this. um, Mighty hoop, and you guys sell this at Ricoma as well, right? You're a dealer.
Correct. Yes. We probably sell a lot. Probably the most out of a lot of the dealers that sell this, for surely because of our volume on the machines out in the field. But yeah, that's the Hoop Master. It's essentially like the hooping board that you can use the mighty hoops with, and it just kind of makes hooping very easy. It snaps on, and then yeah, you can take that module off or on depending on which fixture you need for the size of hoop that you're looking to do. But it just makes hooping very consistent because it's in the same spot every time. So super helpful for like polos, jackets, when you're doing like a left chest polo for like 500 pieces, and then you're not like eyeballing it. You're just kind of very consistent when you do it over and over again.
Yep. So what we have on here is we have numbers and letters and different size shirts. So if I'm doing an extra large men's or unisex polo, I've got a guide that tells me, hey, you want to have it on this position, and then all of those shirts that are the same size are going to be, that logo is going to be placed in that exact spot, versus if I have a ladies polo in a different size, I'm going to have it in a different. So it's really worth every single penny. They're not exactly the cheapest, but it's a game changer. It's a no brainer,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Once you've gone the magnetic route, you're like, whoa. And especially having that jig to be able to easily get that consistent alignment, you're reducing that learning curve again, especially for hooping immediately. And then your backing is not slipping, as much. It's just, there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Again, it's just one of the variables to get right. But then you guys also have an 8-in-1 hooping device, right?
Yeah.
What
So
exactly?
that's what we also, some people also call the fast frames. So that's basically like, when you're, it's to embroider items that are hard to hoop. So you're not really hooping those items. You're essentially floating those items. So if you're looking to do like a beanie, let's say, and you're looking to embroider that with an 8-in-1 device, you would pick the right size of the device. It's 8 different hoops in one package. You pick the right size hoop for that design, and you use sticky backing instead of clamping 2 hoops together to hold the item. You're using sticky backing to float it on top. So it's for like hard to hoop items like baby onesies, socks, sleeves, things that are your hoop, a traditional hoop. You can't really fit through a sleeve or a pocket or something like that. So you would use the 8-in-1 device to float that part.
Yeah, and it's good complementary hoops to the magnetic hoops, right? Like they're,
Correct. Yeah, it serves 2 very different functions. Yeah.
and then an all-in-one hooper. What exactly is that?
So the all-in-one hooper is similar to the Mighty Hoops, but it's compatible with all sorts of hoops. So instead of using it only for the Mighty Hoops that with magnets, you can use the all-in-one hooper with the normal just hoops that come with the machine. You can use them with Mighty Hoops if you have them. It's kind of all compatible with the hooping board, because it's that's why they call it the all-in-one hooper. It can use different types of hoops, normal hoops and magnet hoops with this hooping board. But the hoop master that you're showing, or that you just showed, that's only compatible with the Mighty Hoops.
Okay. Nope. That makes sense. Um, and then I know you guys also sell like a belt sash hoop that's again different than the others.
Yeah.
Um, you've got specialty products need specialty hoops. And again, it comes down to what your customers are asking for.
Correct.
Um, Benefits of having digitizing software. Again, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to be using it all the time, but that flexibility. We have in our shop, when it comes to printing, we've got Photoshop and Illustrator. I am not designing things in Photoshop like I'm a graphic artist, but I can remove background and do a few other things, and I need that
Hmm.
tool in my tool box.
Right.
So one, paying a digitizer to do it that takes time. You sometimes digitizers can get it done real fast. In my experience, when you're paying for digitizing and they say, hey, we can get it done within 4 to 8 hours, that typically means there's a team of people who are digitizing, and the quality of the digitizing is not as always as good.
Hmm.
So having the ability to digitize it in house allows you to again get it done a lot faster. And again, not every design is as complicated and as difficult to digitize. And even if you don't have the most amount of experience, that flexibility with the speed has a lot of benefits. And again, the flexibility, not having to wait, being able to take care of it, or maybe you are doing a bag. You're taking that same design and you're putting it on a left chest and you're putting it on a bag. And for those who don't know, when you digitize something, it's got to be set up for each size device. And if it's being digitized for flats, it has to be digitized differently for hats because
Yeah.
when you sew a hat, you're going from the center out versus if you're doing a flat, it might just go left to right. Um, so it's very important. And when you're doing it yourself, you have kind of that flexibility. Otherwise, you might be paying, you know, 4 times as much to have the same logo digitized, just slightly different, 4 different
Correct.
colors.
Yep.
Uh, Quality control. Again, I really like the digitizer I've used. And then it's funny because I a lot of shops I run into at the trade shows, they use the same digitizer, but we
Mhm.
all came to the same conclusion. He started hiring some people because this quality is not always as good. All of a sudden they forgot to put the lock stitch at the end and it's just not sewing. And that's
Right.
another reason why you do a test sew because I'm not about to take a $60 Carhartt jacket, throw it on the machine and cross my fingers and hope we're good.
Right.
You want to make sure that it was properly digitized. And when you're doing it in house, you often have that quality control. Um, you can also offer it as a service. Maybe it's not your bread and butter, but before you know it, you've got somebody on your team that's really likes to digitize. We in our industry, Henry, I don't think most shops look at each other like they're enemies when they're competitors. We
Hmm.
actually There's plenty of business to go around, and we often like to support each other with contract decoration services. And sometimes it's just being able to that digitizing. If you
Yeah.
have the software, you can offer that, which I think is pretty cool. And like you brought up before, Ricoma's digitizing software is Chroma. And when you're digitizing, what you're really doing, correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, you're essentially kind of creating a map for where stitches are going to be placed, so the machine knows how to sew the design. In a
Yeah.
nutshell,
Exactly.
is fair.
Yeah, yeah. That's the way I describe it is it's just that it's you're turning a design into a format that the machine can read, which is in stitches. So you gotta communicate what you want to do in terms of what kind of stitch you want to do, what is the length of the stitch, what type of stitch, what's the density. So kind of converting all that design into a stitch format. So digitizing is the process of doing that.
And the most common format that embroidery machines use to sew is a DST file, correct?
Yes, correct. But yeah, there's like maybe 10, 15 different formats on the market. Our software has the most common formats. You can, even though it's our proprietary software, you don't only have to export in DST. So we cater to other people that use other machines as well. If they want to export a digitized file using Chroma into their machine's format, you can do that as well.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about the Ricoma difference because we've talked about this a little bit. On-site installation and training. If you have two heads or more, again, um, I highly suggest anybody who buys a machine that's at least two heads, you need a rep, a technician to come and install it, train your staff, get you confident and up and running. Um, and like you said, Henry, typically it's at the availability of the customers purchase the equipment, but it takes your reps, maybe a couple of weeks after they've purchased it to come out there. And how long do you typically spend with a customer who's purchased a machine?
Yeah, so it's a 2 day on-site install. Each day about 5 hours, so about 10 hours in total.
Great. And by the time they leave, that customer is actually embroidering orders and making money and paying off the equipment. Is
Correct.
essentially
Yeah.
the goal, right?
Our goal is to make sure that you're comfortable running your first order and you know how to set everything up, and then any questions you have, that's the time to ask.
Well, and then again, they're gonna one. When you buy equipment and you get trained, it's often information overload, and you're all
Yes.
excited because you got your new toy. And
Yeah.
and one of the things I thought was really cool that I learned at the Deco Summit is your tech support is actually available 7 days a week, which is unique. Um,
Yes.
I'm an entrepreneur, Henry. There's no such thing as a weekend. You know, every day is an opportunity to grow your business. And most shops that I work with, they often do have, somebody working, especially like right now. We're in the Christmas season, it's very busy. And then come January, February, March, it's the slowest time of the year for most shops. Having that tech support is very important. And how does that work with Ricoma?
Yeah, so we're the only one on the market, as far as I know, that offers tech support 7 days a week and after hours. So our team goes Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time, and then Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. So you can really get extended hours of support beyond the 9 to 5. Covers a lot of the West Coast customers that are calling in, late in the afternoon. And then on the weekends too, you get after-hour coverage on the weekends, so that you don't have to wait till Monday for a simple question to be answered. That's something unique that we've always offered since day one. We still offer it to this day. Our team is set up that way to be able to support that. And I think that's one of the key things that makes us different. The other thing that I think is important is that I've mentioned before, is that we're the manufacturer. I think those are probably the two key differences that makes us stand out, is the tech support that's 7 days a week and after hours, and the fact that we're the manufacturer. And I think both go hand in hand, in that us being the manufacturer allows us to have the structure and be able to train all of our technicians with factory level knowledge, and to be able to provide this extended level of support that other companies don't. Because yeah, if you're just a middleman, it's probably hard for you to kind of know everything about the machines at a deeper level than the factory does, and therefore probably not conducive for you to offer extended hours of support anyways. But for us, given our customer base and how much market share that we have, the extended hours of support comes in handy for a lot of people. A simple question can be answered on a Saturday and not have to wait till Monday to have the question answered when the office opens.
Well, and nowadays, Henry, it's so hard to find good employees, and if you do find them, keep them around. They're
Hmm.
ever since COVID. I mean, nobody really wants to work like they used to, and it's so hard. I mean, that's like one thing I hear from every shop. And you may have that embroiderer with decades worth of experience, and they can make that machine sing, and then before you know it, they decide they don't want to do it anymore, or they just
Right.
retire. And now you're back to square one sometimes. So having that tech support for when you bring on new staff, I have to think is extremely helpful. And if I bought a machine today and in 2 years I need that tech support, do I still have it?
Yeah, it's lifetime. So as long as you're a Ricoma customer, the tech support is lifetime and free of charge. So I know some other companies, after like a couple of years, maybe after the warranty ends, or after a year or two, you have to pay for the tech support. It's like a couple of $100 a month or something like that. So ours is lifetime free support. And even if you kind of sell your machine because you're out of the business, that lifetime support, as long as you own the machine as a Ricoma customer, even the new owner gets lifetime support. So
Wow.
that is helpful for people that are just, hey, I have a question on my machine. I have a new employee. I need to train. They have a question. And so this is something that we want to make sure that the equipment that we sell, we're not just selling a piece of equipment, but our customers are successful with our product, and that's gonna, in the long run, make us grow as well.
And as well, you guys have a strong YouTube channel, I assume, with tons of videos that anybody can
Yep.
reference.
Yeah, we post videos on YouTube every single week, on tutorials and just kind of like, either entertaining stuff or educational things, or a combination. Just teaching people how to do embroidery, how to look at printing. A lot of good knowledge about apparel decoration on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, I get an email once a week saying, "Hey, join Henry. He's going to answer some questions."
Yeah,
So I also have a
yeah.
live
I
too.
Yeah, I do like a live stream every month. So I have one coming up next Tuesday actually. So I do that every month just to, Q&A, ask any questions. We've been recently doing some live calls as well, so people kind of call in with their questions, kind of like a talk show, and then so people call in with their questions, and I can answer them live on the live stream. So it's very interactive, and it gives people a level of access that they wouldn't otherwise get anywhere else.
And one thing we talked about earlier, and again, I think this is important. Like you guys actually include a cap frame embroidery kit, the cap driver at no additional cost. That's important. Almost everybody who buys a machine, they're gonna want to do hats and flats. I mean, it's almost a given.
Right.
And you need to know is this being included or is it not? Just making it that turnkey, I think is really special. Um, 5-year warranty on the drivetrain, like we talked about. So what'd you say? 1 year on the parts, three
Yeah, one year.
years
Yeah, 1 year on the parts and labor. So anything happens within the year, you're fully covered. And then 3 years on the boards and electronic components, boards and sensors, and then 5 years on the drivetrain. So you're like motors, gears, shafts, pulleys.
gives you some peace of mind when you're making that
Yes,
purchase.
correct.
And then, like you said, we're looking at maybe a couple weeks to actually get the machine on hand, and then getting that rep out there. Again, maybe a couple weeks after that. But
Shortly thereafter. Yeah, usually we try to time it, just a couple of days after the machine gets is there in the shop, because it
it
takes the
sounds
trip.
sorry, Henry, but it sounds like, oh, it's 1 to 2 weeks. Trust me, I can tell you from personal experience, it's not always that way.
Yeah,
And you, again, we often buy equipment because we have a demand, and sometimes these orders do have a long lead time. We get
right.
that giant order and we have 2 months to do it, but I got to get my hands on that equipment. So
Hmm.
I do think it's very, important that Ricomas actually has the equipment on hand, and you're too many times you're going through a dealer, but that dealer doesn't actually have the equipment on hand. It's being drop
Right,
shipped by somebody else, and it's a nightmare.
right.
Um, very very special. Well, Henry, that's it for my presentation. Again, I hope everybody found this very helpful. We're going to open up to Q&A. Um, Colin, do we have any questions that you can feed us from any of our attendees?
Yeah, so the first one was actually just kind of answered here the last couple of minutes. It was just about as far as other than training sessions, are there any help videos or new techniques that they can find as far as Ricoma goes? And I guess just go to their YouTube channel and you can find a lot over there, right?
Yeah, so we're probably one of the ones that really emphasizes on this education and content. So you can probably, if you're in the market for an embroidery machine, search around and you'll see that probably every question that you have about embroidery, we have a video or a blog or some sort of answer to that question, because we pump out a ton of content. So our YouTube channel, our Instagram, is full of content on, not just how to do something, but just general kind of questions that we try to answer in the buying process. Hey, what's the type of machine that's gonna best suit my needs? What's the difference between this machine and this model that you have? What are their differences? Because those are questions that we get all the time. So we not only answer questions you might have in the buying process, but also the ongoing education as a customer, and as an apparel decorator, we try to feed as much information, and be fully transparent, as much as possible. And so that's also why we have Deco Summit and these ongoing educational events, all to further develop the ecosystem of customers that want to be successful with our products, not just have the machine and then you're on your own. So our YouTube channel, all of our social media channels, and even in just the Ricoma's customer portal has a ton of resources on, like, troubleshooting guides, how to time your machine. We even have the pre-training, so that it's like before your actual live training, you go through a pre-training, so you make sure your machine is threaded properly. You know how to put in your bobbin, like the simple stuff, and then we even quiz you so that we make sure that you kind of completed those steps. So the live training is maximized in making sure that you kind of get your questions answered and learn the rest of the product. So education and training and ongoing support is a huge emphasis for us, and that's why we have all of these resources available to not only customers but to the general public.
And Henry, like you just said there, so like bobbins. So bobbins are a lot more straightforward than most consumables for
Mm-hmm.
embroidery. Highly suggest magnetic core bobbins. We have always
Yes.
found them to be worth every penny. Um, but Henry, if I'm sewing a certain design and I'm not getting the best results, it may have nothing to do with the machine. It's probably often going to come down to maybe the digitizing. Am I using the right needle size? Am I using the right backing? And can Ricoma help me when I'm running into problems like that? Do your tech
Oh
support
yeah,
allow you
of
to
course. That's
pinpoint
probably
what
the
to
that's
use?
probably the 95% of the questions that we get are these kind of simple questions that could be solved just with more training and with more experience. And so entry level embroiderers, people that are just starting out, will naturally have those questions on, hey, my it's not sewing out properly, and then yeah, their natural inclination is to think that it's the machine's fault. But when you're properly trained and you have an eye for it and you have the experience, you'll soon realize, and that's why we have the tech support many times over video conference too, so we can see what you're doing. So we kind of like we troubleshoot the user as well as the machine. So we kind of see what you're doing, and then many times we find like, okay, you're not doing this properly, you're not tracing this properly, or you're losing registration because you didn't hoop it tightly enough. We see wrinkles in your hooping. Is your tension correct? Let's do a sew out and test your tension. Did you adjust your tension properly? Are you using the right size needle? Sometimes people are having trouble, and they've just switched in the needle, but they put in the needle backwards, but they didn't realize that. And then we see it's like, hey, your needle is in backwards. That's the cause of your issues, right? So many simple troubleshooting steps like these, many of which we not only teach, but of course, like you kind of mentioned, it's information overload, right, Zach? So many times it's you don't retain everything that you learn. So kind of with the iterations, you kind of retain more and more of that, and that's where the experience builds, and you're able to be a more proficient, apparel decorator overall.
No, it makes complete sense. Again, like there's a lot of variables. Every process has a lot of variables. It's a trade, and it
Yeah.
takes time to get great at it, master it, and you got to get all those variables right. And again, the consumables that we're using, thread. I've got Deco Blue, Ricoma Orange. At least they got close. Needles. You're going to always go through needles, bobbins, backing. And next week we actually have Madeira. And I had a great conversation with them at the Deco Summit. I mean, the Deco Summit was really beneficial for us at DecoNetwork to be able to network with potential users of our software, but also just some of the other booths like Madeira. They were very helpful, and I could just see, how beneficial that summit was from an education standpoint um, to anybody who attended.
Yeah.
Uh, Colin, what other questions do we have, or do we have any more?
Yeah, I have another one here. They ask, what are the advantages of choosing an industrial machine such as one with 18 needles versus a hobby machine that would have somewhere around 12 needles? Is the higher price worth it?
Yeah. So from my experience, it really depends on what you're looking to do, right? If you're looking to run it as a business, the industrial machine is probably worth it, given several reasons, not just the number of needles, as we kind of touched on with Zach. The number of needles is not only helpful for you to do multicolored designs, but it can make you more efficient by not having to switch out threads or needles as frequently. You have your preset needles for hats using sharp point needles. You have some ranges of needles for ballpoint, for your knits and your normal items. And then you have smaller size needles, larger size needles, etc. And you have multiple kind of colors of threads each. So when you have an 18 or 20 needle machine, a more industrial machine, not only are you getting that capability of more kind of faster productivity because of these kind of time saving hacks that you're able to achieve with the with more needles. But at the same time, typically more industrial machines come with a larger embroidery area. So you are maximizing the potential of what you can do on these higher price items like jackets, bags that are tend to be larger on the embroidery size, so that you can take on those orders and not be limited, on a smaller embroidery area with a more hobby machine. At the same time, these more industrial machines, tend to be more robust overall, not just with the embroidery area, but faster speeds, a different type of build. So it just really depends on kind of your budget, what you're looking to do with that. Some people start out as a small hobby, and they're running a side business. You can get away with that using a hobby machine. But if you're looking to scale up and really take this seriously as a full-time job, then an industrial machine would be the way to go if you're looking to make serious money.
Makes sense to me. Any other questions, Colin?
I think that's it, Zach.
All right. I mean, we talked a long time. Henry, I really appreciate your time today. I hope everybody who attended felt that this webinar was helpful. Again, we will be posting on YouTube early next week. And Henry, I look forward to hopefully seeing you at the Long Beach Impression Show next month in late January. If anybody doesn't know, Long Beach Impressions in January is always the biggest show of the year when it comes to apparel. It's unlike any show of the year, in my opinion. Printing United is another big show, but it's not as geared just towards apparel like Long Beach. So thanks again so much, Henry, for participating, and hopefully we can have you back for a future webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Zach. And it was great to kind of talk through all of these things and hopefully give some people ideas as to what they should be thinking about when choosing their next machine. And I'll definitely be at Long Beach, so looking forward to catching up with you there.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.